There has been a few times in Christian history where the fate of Christianity and of Christians themselves looked pretty bleak, times where the Christian religion could have died out. Now obviously this didn't happen considering Christianity is the world's largest religion today, although Islam is quickly catching up. There's an opinion going around that I hear all the time that says that Christianity would have died out if it weren't for the Roman Emperor Constantine. But is this true? Let's look at this question through the lens of history and see if we can answer it in a scholarly and educated way. First of all, who was Constantine, and what makes him such an important figure in Christianity? Flavius Valerius Constantinus, aka Constantine, also known as Constantine the Great or Constantine the First, was born on February 27th around the year 280 CE, although ancient sources are conflicting when it comes to the exact year of his birth. He was born to a prominent father who became Roman emperor in 305, and his mother, Helena, who came from very humble beginnings and was part of the lower class in Greece. Constantine was brought up in the Eastern Empire at the court of Diocletian. Diocletian was the Roman emperor from 284 to 305 CE and preceded Constantine's father as emperor. There was something known as the Diocletianic persecution, or the Great Persecution, and it was the last and most intense persecution of Christians within the Roman Empire. Diocletian, along with Maximian, Galerius, and Constantius, issued a series of edicts revoking Christians' legal rights with new rigorous demands to comply with Rome's traditional religious practices. Under these new edicts, Christians were required to sacrifice to Roman gods, and they faced a great deal of discrimination within the empire. As you can imagine, Constantine grew up a pagan, and according to a biography written by Eusebius of Caesarea, he was a monotheist, a devout worshipper of the sun god Sol Invictus. However, Constantine likely encountered Christians all the time. He likely encountered them while working in the public court and also in everyday life in the cities of the Eastern Empire. There are many significant things that happened in the life of Constantine, and I'd like to highlight two of them because they're extremely important to the topic of this video. The first one is in 305 when Diocletian and Maximian renounced the throne, and Constantine's father, Constantius I Chlorus, became the Roman emperor in the West. Constantius requested the presence of his son, Constantine, to help him fight a military campaign. But just 1 year later, in the year 306, Constantius, Constantine's father, died at Eboracum. Constantius's army immediately recognized Constantine as their new emperor, and Constantine threw himself into a series of civil wars because not everyone wanted to recognize him as the next emperor. During these civil wars, Constantine defended his right to be emperor by engaging in battle between many different Roman factions, including with Maxientus, Maximian's son. This then leads us to another extremely significant event in Constantine's life, and this could be one of the most significant events in all of human history, and that is Constantine's conversion to Christianity and his victory at the Battle of Milvian Bridge in the year 312. That story goes something like this. Before the battle at Milvian Bridge, Constantine and his army saw a cross of light in the sky above the sun, with the words in Greek that are translated into Latin as in hoc signo vinces, which means in this sign conquer. Later that night, Constantine had a dream in which Jesus Christ appeared to him and told him that he should use the sign of the cross against his enemies. This dream prompted Constantine to put the Christian symbol of the Chi on his soldiers' shields, and when he and his army were victorious at the Battle of the Milvian Bridge, he attributed his success to the God of the Christians. This, by the way, is the Chi, which is a combination of the first two Greek letters of the word Christos, which means Christ. In the year 315, the Senate dedicated a Triumphal Arch in Rome to Constantine for his victory at the Battle of Milvian Bridge, although this arch very well could have been originally made for Maxientus. The Triumphal Arch had an inscription praising Constantine because, with divine instigation, he and his army were victorious. This inscription didn't go so far as to say what kind of divine instigation helped Constantine, so the Romans could decide for themselves who they wanted to believe helped Constantine. Was it Sol Invictus or Jesus? One thing that is not historically disputed is that after Constantine's victory at the Battle of the Milvian Bridge, Constantine became a devout Christian. Just 10 years earlier, Christians were savagely persecuted all throughout the Roman Empire. But in the year 311, 1 year before Constantine's conversion, Galerius came down with an awful illness, and he believed, perhaps, this was punishment by Jesus. So on April 30th, 311, Galerius issued an edict granting Christian toleration in the Roman Empire. Now that Constantine was officially recognized as the Western Roman Emperor, he used his power to address the status of Christians, issuing the Edict of Milan in 313, which legalized Christianity and permanently established religious toleration of Christianity within the Roman Empire. One important thing to note here is that Christianity didn't become the official religion of Rome until 67 years later under Theodosius I. The Eastern Roman Emperor Theodosius I signed a decree in the presence of the Western Roman Emperor Valentinian II that made Christianity the official religion of the state and punished the practice of pagan rituals and religious practices. Theodosius I also made the Creed of Nicaea the orthodox view of Christianity in Rome. With Constantine's conversion to Christianity, he became the first ever Christian Roman emperor. And the importance of this historical fact cannot be overstated. Rome, which had up until this point been one of the biggest enemies of Christianity. This is the same Rome that had the imperial cult, which means that people worshipped the emperor as a god, and emperors wanted to be worshipped as gods. And now the emperor was a Christian worshiping Jesus. This is a big change. This is also the same Rome that the book of Revelation in the Bible bashes. John of Patmos, the author of the book of Revelation, clearly hated Rome. He talked about it using symbols that were kind of secretive, but clearly he hated Rome. This is the same Rome that created such huge enemies of Christianity like the Emperor Nero. Nero, for example, hated the Christians so much that when he set fires in his own palace, he blamed the Christians. There is a story about Nero, which is pretty fascinating, that says that he would take the Christians, cut off their heads, put their heads on poles, dip their heads in kerosene, and light their heads on fire. And the burning heads of Christians would light his late-night drinking parties around his palace. That is some hatred right there. The Roman aristocracy, up until the time of Constantine, hated Christians, and that's why Constantine is such an important figure in Christianity. Constantine also called the Council of Nicaea in the year 325, and I don't want to get too deep into the details of the Council of Nicaea because I'm going to make a dedicated video all about it. There's a lot that happened, and there's a lot of controversy surrounding the Council of Nicaea, so I think it deserves its own video. But it'll suffice here to say that the kinks of the Trinity were worked out at the Council of Nicaea. And the Trinity states that God exists as one God, but in three persons, as the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. This is called the Godhead of the Trinity. The Council of Nicaea also said that it was only the Son that became incarnate in Jesus Christ. And the Council of Nicaea also officially recognized Arianism as a heresy. So going back now to the main point of this video, which is, would Christianity have survived without Constantine? And I think by analyzing the historical evidence, I think the answer would have to be yes. And here's why I think that. I think it's important to realize that Christianity was not just some small fringe religious movement on the outskirts of the Roman Empire, but Christianity was all over the place in ancient Europe. Christianity survived Nero. It survived the Emperor Trajan. It survived underground in catacombs. Christians escaped death by communicating with secret images like the fish in the Cairo. Christianity spread like wildfire in poor, marginalized communities. Christianity accepted women. It accepted slaves. It captivated the hearts of many Jews and the minds of many Greek philosophers. Christianity spread southward into Egypt, eastward all the way to India, northward into Asia Minor and beyond, and westward into Greece, Rome, all the way into Spain. Christianity had girth, which is why it was a hot topic in Roman public policy, and why they enacted the Diocletianic persecution, because there were a lot of Christians in the Roman Empire, and they wanted to get rid of them. Truth is, by the 4th century, Christianity was everywhere in the Roman Empire, and if Constantine hadn't converted to Christianity, another Roman emperor likely would have before too long. Constantine had a huge impact on Christianity, but would it have survived without him? I think by analyzing the historical evidence, the answer has to be yes. Christianity might have looked a little different without him, but I still think it would have survived. But what do you think? Do you think Christianity could have survived without Constantine? Leave me a comment down below and let me know. Do you agree with me? Or do you think I missed a huge chunk of history that could change the answer? I love hearing your comments, so have at it. Now, before we go, there is another story about Constantine and his mother that I just had to throw in this video. It really has nothing to do with the topic, but it's so fascinating I just couldn't leave it out. So when Constantine converted to Christianity, his mother, Helena, also converted to Christianity, and she is actually considered a saint by the Roman Catholic Church. And in the year 324, Constantine sent his mother, Helena, to the Holy Land in search of two things: the Holy Sepulchre, which means the location where Jesus died, was buried, and rose from the dead, considering John 19:41-42 says Jesus' tomb was close to the place of the crucifixion. The second reason he sent her to the Holy Land was to find the true cross of Christ, the one he was actually crucified on. As the story goes, it is said that Helena followed in the footsteps of Jesus by performing many acts of kindness and good works, such as giving money, food, and clothing to the poor and fulfilling the needs of the local churches. Helena searched the Holy Land for the true cross for days without finding anything. And as legend has it, Helena's prayers were finally answered when she smelled sweet-smelling dust and saw a flash of lightning. Then she knew where to dig. Her assistant, a man named Judas Cyriacus, who was forced to travel with Helena on this trip against his will, began to dig where Helena told him. Sure enough, they found 3 crosses there, presumably the cross of Christ and the crosses of the 2 criminals that were crucified with Jesus. But they didn't know for sure if they found the true cross of Christ, so they went to the outskirts of town and found a leper. Then they brought the leper back to Golgotha, or Calvary, which is where Jesus was crucified, which means the place of the skull, because the mountain looked like a skull, or someone who was bald. They had the leper touch all 3 crosses. The leper touched the first cross, and nothing happened. She touched the second cross, and again, nothing happened. She touched the third cross, and instantly the leper was healed. And that's how they knew they found the true cross of Christ. Now, obviously, this story has a lot of legendary and probably mythical elements to it, but you can actually still see a bit of the cross Helena found as a relic within the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, which is a church that was formed around the presumed site of the crucifixion and burial. There is also a relic of this cross in the Syriac Orthodox Church in St. Mark's Monastery in Jerusalem. Well, I thought this story was an interesting little tidbit of information that I wanted to provide to all of you who stuck around and watched this video to the end. If you liked this video, consider hitting the like button and subscribing to this channel for more religious and historical content. And as always, stay thirsty for knowledge, my friends.